everyone, and welcome to Book Solid. We're your hosts. I'm Soraya.
And I'm India.
And this week we're discussing Words on Bathroom Walls by Julia Walton, both the book and the film. If you haven't yet, please be sure to check out our bonus episode. We did an interview with Julia. She gave us some really great insight into, her writing process for this book. We got to chat with her about her upcoming novel, Just Our Luck, and we also got to kind of pick her brain about the adaptation process. So we had a really great conversation with her, and make sure that you check it out and then head back over and finish this episode.
Spoiler alert. Hey guys, just as a heads up, we will be revealing spoilers in this episode. If you haven't yet read the book or seen the show or film, this is a courteous reminder to proceed with caution. So just jumping right in, what were your thoughts on the book in general?
So I really, really enjoyed this book. I felt like it opens the door for like a much needed conversation. And I know we were talking about this before and we touched on it in the interview with Julia, but there's just such a, there's a hole in media, I feel like, whether that be books or movies, TV shows, what have you, and especially like young adult fiction, where they don't really approach the subject of mental health very much. And we're in kind of this time where people are starting to destigmatize mental health and talk about it a little more openly, but it seems to only be things that people are comfortable with or things that people might understand. So we're having more conversations about depression or anxiety, which are very, very important conversations to have. But like this book takes on paranoid schizophrenia, and I can't recall any piece of media or anything that I've digested that really takes this on and speaks about it in a way that I feel is like realistic and honest and open. Most of the time it kind of like casts off these characters and makes them seem dangerous or makes them only their disorder instead of representing them as full whole people. So it was just really refreshing to see Julia really bring Adam to life and how much we got to see of him that wasn't just about his disorder.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I really enjoyed this book, and like you said, I think oftentimes it's either in the media and literature, mental health is treated, or mental disorders specifically are treated like the characters are almost vilified. Or they're like the butt of the joke, they're the outcast, and it's 2020. Like, it's really refreshing to have a book like this. And like you said, while other mental disorders are definitely important, I personally have never read a book where the main character is dealing with schizophrenia. He's also a teenager in high school, dealing with being a teenager in high school. So it was just a really, really interesting read. I really enjoyed it. I felt really connected. I was definitely crying towards the end when things started getting intense.
And Adam was so well written. Like, I feel like he's made it onto one of my favorite literary characters of all time lists. I was so emotionally invested in his well-being, and like I can't imagine what he was going through. You know what I mean? Like, I felt for him the entire time. And so it's rare that a book can really pull at your heartstrings like that and totally envelop you in a character in their world. And this definitely did that.
Right. Yeah, it was tough because, like, especially with the book being in his POV, I just kept thinking, like, I want him to win so badly. I want him to succeed. It hurt when because, he's very aware of how he feels like others are perceiving him because of his disorder. And so, like, his relationship with Paul, which we'll probably talk about a little bit later. Just, even his mom, and her processing it. I love the character of his mom, by the way.
Yes, like, me too.
10 out of 10 moms. Shout out to all the moms.
Would recommend to a friend.
Literally. And I just love, like, how raw it was. Like, he's cussing. He's a teenager.
And he was funny. He had a good sense of humor. He's clever. He's, like, cheeky. And it's just... we love him. Okay. Right. We love him.
Definitely. And also with that, one thing I know we've talked about, like, off air is, like, let's just talk really quickly about, because we were actually talking about it last night, depictions of high school in media and how high schoolers are.
Yeah.
So, like, I felt like when I was reading this book, the conversations, the situations they were in, it felt real. It was very nostalgic. I'm getting a little bit older. No, I'm kidding. But, like, it felt real. It didn't feel cheap. Sometimes, like, high school is I just feel like when I watch shows or read certain books, like
it's like, what high school did you go to?
Right. You know, the characters don't feel real. It feels like it's just for show, just overly theatrical in a way that, because like, you know, especially when it comes to bullying and stuff, it's not always going to be super obvious. And there's a part in the book in the beginning where one of the characters, Ian, like the school jock, when he thinks no one is watching is when he knocks the books out of a younger student's backpack. And I feel like that's realistic. People in high school can be really bad. Like, they can be terrible. But it's not always going to be this big scene when everyone's watching. There's, like, low-key stuff like that. So I felt like that was realistic.
Yeah. Oh, Ian, he was tough to take. I mean, like, he was just atrocious. Like, even his apology at the end, I was like, what do you want? Like, I was not buying it. And Dwight's dig at him about, he's like, stick to swimming because your cookies are trash. I don't know, that part just made me laugh. I mean, I appreciate the apology and I understand the growth of his character and what it was supposed to accomplish. But to me, and maybe we're getting a little ahead of ourselves here, but I just couldn't. He knew that Adam had schizophrenia and then chose to announce it to the entire school by, you know, posting that video during prom, which was atrocious behavior. I don't understand how any human could treat another human like that. You can't even imagine. He couldn't even begin to imagine what he's going through on a day-to-day basis. And you felt that that was an appropriate way of getting him back. So immature and so terrible.
Right. Yeah, you know, that part I was thinking to myself, who in this book will get the award of irredeemable trash? Because
every episode, you know, we have to have
we have to, you know. I'll be curious when we read a book where there's not one. But I don't know. So with Ian, yes, he does apologize, but like you said, he felt like, I mean, the only thing with his apology is the fact that he baked the cookies. Yeah. Because I'm like, he could have went to the store and got them, but then we know Maya made him, you know, but he still did it. So I'm like, is there some redemption there? Like,
maybe he does. He realized he took it too far.
Right. But it's still awful. Like, the fact that that's unfathomable. Like, that he would, but we know he's truly evil because in the very beginning, for no apparent reason, no one's watching. He's, you know, popular, from what I understand, wealthy. I think he's like the president's, or the principal's son or something like that.
Or like, yeah, his parents are like large donors to the school. So.
Yeah, definitely not the principal's son. But yes, his parents have a big stake in the education at the Catholic school. And so I think he did kind of feel bad. But I will say Adam's mom's boyfriend, or like fiance, husband, stepdad, Paul's mom.
Ugh, yes. It angered me so much because that was the absolute last thing that he needed to be hearing. Like, who is she to step in and say that he's a danger, and, you know, voicing these concerns about her grandchild because, you know, we know Adam's mom is pregnant, and just also we could talk about her homophobic and racist slurs and, you know, behavior. So she just I hated to see, because Adam was already making himself feel so badly about what was going on, as if somehow having schizophrenia was his fault, and feeling like a burden to his family and the people in his life. And just to have this person come in and like trying to further that, obviously she doesn't know what's going on in his head, but to say those things, you have no idea the impact that your words have on him. And I mean, actually you probably do and still don't care. Like, do you think he has no feelings? Right. You know, you're just saying this right in front of him. And so it was just angering because I hated seeing him put all this guilt onto himself of like feeling like he's ruined his mom's life, or he's made her life exponentially harder and it'd be easier without him. And that's the lot. It broke my heart to hear him thinking that. So to have someone kind of even just furthering that in his head was angering.
Yeah. And you know, I feel like it could be possible that part of Adam's kind of tumultuous relationship with Paul could stem from the fact that Paul's mother is like that, and so he's kind of associated with that. And I know Paul, he doesn't want to associate himself so much with his mom. He definitely pulls back from that and is like, I don't agree with her views. But I think the way that like their relationship was written was really realistic. I felt like that could really happen. And, you know, in the book, it seemed like Paul was just coming to terms with Adam. But for Adam, having someone who's close to you have those uncertainties must have been kind of hard for him, and it was. But at the end, you know, when there's the letter, like, it was definitely hard to approach, but it felt realistic, it felt truthful, and I'm glad ultimately that they were able to have that relationship.
Yeah, I think too, like, to your point, I think to Adam, Paul needed time to figure out what this meant for their lives and figure out, like, I think he just wasn't sure how to be around Adam anymore. Because he just, you know, he needed his own time to kind of understand everything and things like that. And I think from Adam's perspective, it maybe looked like rejection,
right?
Or like he was saying, like, Paul didn't know how to talk to him anymore, which is definitely what it seemed like. But I think it came more so from Paul trying to figure out the role he plays in Adam's life right now, or how to be there for him. It took him a little longer to figure that out. And so I ultimately, like you were saying, I do like that they were able to kind of mend their relationship by the end of the book through that letter, because it seemed, you know, prior to Adam's diagnosis, they had a fine, you know, stepfather stepson relationship, right. And I think that the change, that shift in the relationship really weighed heavily on him throughout the book. So it was nice to see there was that resolve. And you brought up an excellent point, which in the book I feel also contributed to kind of that mending, and I'm not going to take credit for it, but it was when Adam's mom had the baby. Yeah, and so if you want to...
Oh, yeah. That part, like, that really... I don't know, I just felt connected. Like, the ending of the book was so nice, just because that's one thing, like, there's been so many books where I've read where it's like the third act, so to say, you know, that's kind of like where things could fall apart, or where I won't really get that closure. But the way that things were written, you know, of course, Paul, once the baby's born, he has Adam hold the baby, and like that was so big, because in that moment he's saying, you know, I trust you, I love you, this is your sibling, I'm a part of your family, you're still a part of this family. Because I got the feeling that Adam felt like he needed to kind of pull back and separate himself, because he didn't want to be a burden. And I think that's definitely something folks with mental disorders of all types feel, you know, just having this weight and just, you know, dealing with everything. And so that scene really stuck out to me.
Yeah, definitely. And like you said, I think it was just so important that it was Paul who had him hold the baby, and it's just like his way of saying, like you said, I don't think differently of you, you know, I still love you, you're still my son. And, you know, going on to your point about the ending, as I'm reading the book, I was very curious about how it was going to end, because I felt like that was really going to make or break the book, more so maybe than with others, because, you know, we have this topic that is not addressed very often or written about often. And so I didn't want it to end in such a way where it was like everything's peachy keen and he and Maya ride off into the sunset, because that would not be realistic, you know?
Right.
And then I also didn't want this like gut-wrenching ending that made it seem like people can't live with the disorder. So I just felt like there was like, it was going to be a very delicate balancing act, and I feel like Julia nailed it. It felt like a realistic ending, and it felt like, you know, it wasn't being sugar-coated, like, oh, this is such an easy thing to get over, and you know, you're gonna be perfectly fine if you just accept love. But it also wasn't like he cannot ever continue to live his life, and this is all his life is going to be. So it was just a very, very well done ending.
Right. And like, it frustrates me that this topic is still taboo, and it's still a delicate topic, so to say. But like you said, the fact that she approached it so well, it makes me really hopeful for the future of literature and media, and like what we can expect, and just people getting more comfortable about these are real issues, these are real life human issues countless folks are dealing with every day. And so it shouldn't be something that, you know, you have to whisper about, or you can't be so, you know, it has to be all quiet and all that, you know?
Yeah, and there was specifically a part in the book when Adam was talking about like how people approach him having schizophrenia compared to people who have, you know, other disorders, or people who have certain diseases. And so he compared it to like when someone has cancer. He's like, when you have cancer, people are sympathetic, they feel something for you, and people even hold races to raise money for your cure. It's different when people are afraid of what you've got, because then you've got some of the sympathy but none of the support. And I feel like that's part of the issue. Like, people don't make an effort to if they don't understand something, they don't make an effort to try. And so, you know, people who have schizophrenia, people don't understand, you know, the complexity of the disorder. And so they just take what they see in the media or what people tell them and they run with that. And so, like, for him to say, like, there really isn't a support system for people with schizophrenia. People with many mental disorders, like, where is that support system, you know? And so I just thought that was a really, really great line, and that really stuck out to me. I had to write it down, and I wanted to make sure to put it in the episode because I felt like that was such a good compare and contrast to make.
Right. For sure. And in the film, when they approach that same subject, there's a scene where they're on a bus and they see a homeless person, and Adam it's kind of implied that he thinks he could also have schizophrenia disorder. And he starts talking about how in society, the way that people just don't feel empathy. You know, they acknowledge it, they see it, they're like, yeah, that sucks. But there's no one's really extending like an olive branch, like trying to help understand. And so a lot of times in the homeless population, you know, these are people, human beings who are just outcasted. And that's not to say, of course, every single homeless person is dealing with mental health disorders. But for those who are, it's just another step where they're feeling most likely distanced from everyone. They don't have the support.
Pushed to the fringes of society.
Right. And it's awful. It's terrible. And so I'm glad that part made it to the film. And yeah, it's definitely something to think about. But I wanted to ask you about, so using medication to treat his disorder was a major part in the book and the film. And I don't know, I felt like it was really interesting because in the beginning, I got that he definitely was pretty reliant on the medication. Like, he wanted it to work. He wanted it to be the, you know, magic pill. And seeing him kind of grapple with the reality, because it's a trial for an experimental drug, and so seeing him kind of grapple with it and how it affects his life, that was really interesting. What was your take on it?
Yeah, it was, and it's interesting too because there's kind of a little bit of a difference between the book and the film. In the book, he like you were saying, starting to become reliant on it. He noticed that it was making a difference. He could see, like, he was feeling like he had more control kind of over his hallucinations and stuff, and like just being able to differentiate between what was real and what wasn't. Like, he just seemed like he had a greater control over it. It wasn't completely gone, but he could control it. Whereas the movie kind of took the approach where they were kind of going away altogether. But then also in the book, he didn't want to stop taking it. It was per his doctor's recommendations because they said he wouldn't be a good candidate because it wasn't, he was having too many side effects. Whereas in the movie, he noticed he was having the side effects and stopped taking it. It's interesting to see those two different takes and to see the role that it played in, I feel like, almost in his acceptance of his disorder and how he moves forward.
Yeah. And I felt like that was definitely really important. So a lot of times when treating all types of different mental health disorders, it is recommended that there's like a 2-step approach. So whether that be medication and therapy, a combo, or one or the other, it's pretty common, right? But I think something that was really important for Adam was that he felt this major disconnect between, he was like, here's me, and then here's my schizophrenia. But by the end of the book, when he realizes that the medical trial isn't working, it kind of, in a way, forces him to kind of connect the two. It was just so nice to see him be like, this is me, this is all of me. And I felt like, that's not to say that the medication can't be effective, but I felt like in his specific case, it was really useful for him because while he still had his psychiatrist to talk to, and he also has a wonderful support team. Like, he's got Maya, Dwight, his mom, Paul, that was super helpful for sure. But ultimately, you know, when he's by himself, he's like, look, this is me, this is what I'm dealing with. And I felt like once he had that confidence and comfort within himself, he was just doing better and he felt better.
Yeah, and there was a great line, and I can't remember it verbatim, and now I can't remember if it was in the book or the film or both, but basically, I think it was his mom telling him, like, this is a part of you, but it's not all of you. You know what I'm saying? And just having that acceptance, like, this is something that will always be a part of him. I mean, as we know that there's no cure, but it does not have to define who you are. And I feel like a lot of people, no matter, especially a lot of people when you're struggling from some kind of mental disorder, it feels like it is all encompassing. It feels like, you know, how first of all, I know a lot of people don't ever want to say anything because they don't want that label attached. Like, that's all people will see once you open up and tell them. I understand that fear. And then it's also just, you know, even in your own mind, like, you are more than whatever it is that is plaguing you. And so to see him, like, just come to terms with that yes, this is something I will have to deal with forever, but it does not make or break who I am as Adam.
Exactly. And I think a lot of his contention with himself and his kind of inner demons had to do with the fact that at his original high school, that was really hard to read and even harder to watch. Like, I just wanted to give him a hug. Like, where's his hug at? We need hugs.
Like,
6 o'clock.
Charlie Plummer killed this role.
Yes.
He did such a great job. Like, I'm gonna say that like 100 times before this episode is over.
Yes.
But yeah, he really did.
Yeah, I was just telling Sarai before we started recording that I recently watched Looking for Alaska on Hulu, and hopefully we can maybe cover it at someday on the podcast.
I'm down.
But you know, that was my first time being introduced to like his acting, and coincidentally, before we both started reading it, we knew like they were casted Charlie Plummer and Taylor Russell. So like the whole time I was reading it, I was picturing Charlie Plummer.
Yeah,
but like, once we saw the film afterwards, we both were like, okay, this is Adam.
He's the perfect Adam, yeah.
Right. But yes, so when he's at his original high school, everything was fine until his so-called friends found out about his schizophrenia. And that's when they turn, you know, they push him to the side, they outcast him, they basically are calling him a weirdo, all this stuff. Terrible, terrible people.
Yes.
But like, you know, he's carrying that with him, right? So he's very guarded, he's very defensive. And so when he goes to the Catholic private school and he starts meeting everyone, his whole approach was like, no one's gonna know about this. I'm keeping this hush. This medication is gonna help me. Like, everything will just go away. But it was so nice that Maya and Dwight in the book were just like, dude, we don't care. Like, we love you.
Yes.
And all that comes with you. You don't have to hide this. You don't have to push this away. You don't have to carry all that weight by yourself. There's this part when I believe it's after like the prom fiasco and he's at home. He hasn't been at school in a while and Dwight shows up. And in the book, every Monday night they play tennis. And at first it was arranged by their moms as like a teenage play date. And then they're friends. So they kept doing it. And then he shows up and Adam, it's his first time seeing him since everything. He's like, dude, what are you doing here? Like, we don't have to do this. It's fine. Like, our moms, they're not making us. And he's like, it's Monday night. We're playing tennis.
Yeah, he's like, don't you know that I'm schizophrenic? I think he just flat out says it. And he's like, yes, but it's Monday and we play tennis.
Right. You know, I loved that part. I loved that. That felt realistic. Like, I could see that happening. And I just love how he's like, I don't care about all that. Like, I just care that one, you're okay, and two, you know, you're my friend. Like, we're about to play. And then Adam was like, he said something about like not wanting to go outside or something to that effect. And he's like, that's why I got the Wii Sports.
And it's like, and what you're saying too is the way that Maya and Dwight reacted when they found out. That should not be the exception to the rule. You know, the rule should not be people shunning him and treating him terribly and making fun of him. I mean, my goodness, what is wrong with these people? And so it's like, the kindness, compassion, understanding, and support that they showed him, like, that should be from everybody.
That should be the norm.
That should be the norm. And so I'm glad that he had them in his life, and I only hope that we get to a point where like that is the norm, because like, let's be honest, I feel like the reactions other people have of pushing him away or making assumptions is the much more realistic thing, unfortunately.
Definitely. And quickly, I just want to touch more on Maya's reaction, because that was really interesting. Because, of course, at this point, they have a full romantic relationship. They're dating, boyfriend and girlfriend. And, of course, there's the prom fiasco situation with Ian. And, you know, he decided, especially in both in the book and the film, it was pretty much similar. He's like, look, I don't want to see her. He felt embarrassed, and rightfully so. Like, what Ian did was horrible, and he shouldn't, like... that part was tough because I didn't want him to feel embarrassed because of his schizophrenia, but it's understandable that, you know, prom, one of the biggest nights in high school, you know, that he experienced that. And so, long story short, he wants to push Maya away.
I hated to see, because like in the movie he was yelling at her, basically just trying to get her to leave. Yeah. And it's just like, it breaks your heart. It really does. And
right. And so I love that she was just like, you don't get to make that choice. You know, it's not your decision to decide
what's best for both of us.
Right. You know, she's like, I have a say in this. And it's tough because I understand. Like, I'm not going to just be like, no, he just has to tell everyone. Like, like you were saying, this is obviously something that's very difficult for him to deal with. And he's just experienced this awful situation at his old high school. It makes complete sense why he feels that way. But Maya's also right in the sense that, you know, he made that decision for the both of them. And so by her just being there, like, I don't care. I love you and everything that comes with you. If this is what's going on, we're going to work through it together as a unit.
So that's one of the things that I really liked about Maya is, like, her fierce independence, and she doesn't back down from her opinions just because, you know, maybe she's thinking what she thinks or believes might go against the norm. She's not afraid to voice her opinion. She's not afraid to say what she means. And I think even Adam comments on that. Like, she always says exactly what she means. And in the movie, there's a point she's like, it's best to say what you mean or say nothing at all. And so she's very upfront. And so, you know, she did not let him scare her away. And I feel like a lot of people would have taken, like, especially that part where he yelled at her, they would have taken that like, fine, he doesn't want to see me, then I guess that's that. But she's like, no, absolutely not. Like, you're not, I refuse to let you push me away.
Right.
And I just, like, I love the way she stuck up for herself and stuck up for him.
Yeah. Maya's character was interesting. And, like, the fact that she was described by Adam as being almost robotic-like.
Yeah.
I laughed out loud just because, just in my regular talking slang, I guess you could call it, I'm always making, like subtle technological references. Like, I'll be like, my stomach's downloading right now. Like, if it's like, if I'm hungry. So I thought that was super funny and, like, tongue-in-cheek. But Maya was interesting. She was kind of like a crab in the sense that she had this tough exterior and she's very laconic, but she, you know, she had a softer, she cared, she loves her friend, she loves Adam, and in the film, she was pretty independent.
Yeah.
You know, I felt like I got the sense that she wasn't trying to get close to anyone because she was very driven, determined. She's like, look, I have a plan. I'm valedictorian. And so...
Yeah, their relationship in the movie was definitely more of a slow burn kind of thing. And not saying in the book they, like, jumped into bed together, but it was definitely more of, like, the book had more of them actually being together.
Yeah.
Where a lot of the movie was, like, building up to them getting to that point.
Right. So something else I wanted to talk about with Maya's character was that, of course, there's the part when he shows up to her house. He could tell at school she was acting different. She seemed kind of like she was having a bad day. And they were supposed to hang out, but she's like, you know, not right now, I'm busy. And so something that was just really fun to read is, like, Adam's passion for cooking.
Yes. I was going to say really quick, I love when movies use food as part of the storytelling. I love that. I don't know if you've seen the movie Chef.
Oh, I've heard about it.
Yes, okay. Such a good movie. I just love when food plays, like, an integral part of the story because, like, I feel like that's so true for our lives. Like, there's such, like, a community and, like, just a lot of, like, emotional attachment.
Yeah, kind of going off of that, or, like, with Adam's decision to cook and stuff, there's that part in the book, I'm not sure if it was in the film, but Adam's mom was saying that, like, she has this kind of principle that she loves to sit down and eat a meal together in person, and like you're saying, like, just unity, community, bonding over food, breaking bread together, so to say.
There's a sentimental attachment associated with food and cooking together, and, like, you know, you associate memories and people with certain dishes, and so I just love that food, especially in the movie we got to see that come to life.
Yes,
I really like that.
Yes, and, you know, he shows up to Maya's house, he meets her father, her little brothers, and he knows in the book, at least, that for her, food is it's an afterthought. You know, it's like, look, I'm busy, I gotta eat. Here's some mac and cheese, or here's, like, a frozen dinner, something like that. But for him, you know, he's really advanced. He's making filet mignon and all that good stuff.
Homemade pad thai. When you said that part, I was like, what?
And he also bakes, you know, in the book at least. But so long story short, you know, he goes over and he makes this meal. I think it's like lasagna and garlic knots and super delicious stuff. And she comes home and she's just kind of like, what the heck? You know, like, you showed up unannounced and you're cooking, and, like, she felt like he was kind of pitying her.
Yeah. Yeah, especially they appear to come from two different social classes as well. So I think that was definitely like a contributing factor. And as independent as Maya is, like we were saying, I feel like the last thing she wants is anyone's pity. And especially like, I mean, she hadn't admitted it yet, but it's pretty easy to see that at this point she likes Adam. And so especially, you know, someone she has feelings for, she purposely kept this part of her life separate from him, especially in the movie. You know, she got dropped off at a fake house because she didn't want him to know where she really lived and, like, see that her family was living a much more modest lifestyle than he was. And so I think first of all, him seeing where she lived and taking pity on her was one thing, and then coupled with the fact that she had feelings for him, I think really contributed to the reaction that she had.
Definitely. Yeah, I feel like that was an interesting part for sure, both in the book and the film. And I won't take credit for this because you brought this up, but in the film at least, and the book, like, I'll just bring it up if you want to talk more about it. But it was pretty clear to, I think, like, the reader or the viewer that Adam wasn't malintentioned, and that, you know, we can kind of intuit from, like, he's very caring. That's something I got from the book. He is so considerate and thoughtful, and he's very particular about how he engages with everyone around him. And so I don't think he meant any foul by it. It wasn't like, he wasn't trying to pity her, you
exactly
know?
Yeah, he was genuinely just trying to, I feel, and not even like, I feel like this is just true, like you're saying, he's a very sweet person, genuinely kind, considerate, and I feel like he just wanted to make her happy, which is exactly what I believe he said to her in that scene, is I just wanted to do something to make you feel better, because you know, in the book she had been crying, he knew she was like down that day, and I'm like, how unbelievably sweet is that?
Yeah.
He's just I love him.
Yeah, I know. On the flip hand, I can definitely see where Maya's coming from. You know, it's tough, and especially going to, I could speak to that. Like, I went to a high school that was definitely on the upper middle class scheme of things, and just a completely different socioeconomic and like race, all that stuff, different than what my experience was. And so I understand why she was on the defense, and especially with him just kind of showing up unannounced. She's like, what the heck?
And at this point, like, he knows that she gave him the wrong house, so that clearly means she doesn't want you to know.
Exactly.
So, like, I get what,
yeah, so she kind of felt betrayed. She was probably embarrassed, you know. I don't know. My mom had this thing when I was a kid growing up where it's like, if we had company coming over, you know, gotta clean the house, gotta get everything together.
Right, yeah.
You know, so in the event that someone did show up unannounced, it's kind of like, oh, well, I didn't do my cleaning thing, you know, but like, come on in kind of thing. But for her, she wasn't even there. Adam met her father and like her siblings. I think she felt kind of like caught off guard by that moment.
Yeah, for sure. Something I will say that was different between the book and the movie that I really liked was Father Patrick's character. So, you know, Adam goes to a confession, like at one point in the book it happens, and he kind of talks to, you know, who is going to go on to be Father Patrick's character in the movie, but and that's really all we see of that character there. But in the movie, you know, he goes to see him several times. He even goes to see Adam once he's after he's hospitalized, and I really kind of liked bringing his character into the story more in the movie, because it kind of gave Adam another supportive person in his life. You know, another person who was there to kind of guide him, or he could go to when he was seeking advice. And Adam came as his full and whole self. He didn't hold anything back just because he was the priest. But yeah, I just really enjoyed his character. I feel like Andy Garcia was the perfect person to cast for that. And especially, and I know we kind of talked about this before we started recording, so I'm not going to take credit because that was you who mentioned it, but since he seemed to have a more tumultuous relationship with Paul in the movie than in the book, I feel like Father Patrick's character kind of helped to ease some of what he was looking for in terms of guidance and having like a father-ish figure, literally and metaphorically.
No, yeah, for sure. That's true. It was definitely refreshing to see that, and it was just another way of thinking. It was especially interesting because in the book and the film, from what I understand, Adam is leaning towards atheist, and at the very least, he just doesn't really understand Catholicism. He's not really connected to it. And so it's like, of all people, you know, you got Father Patrick, who he's really connecting with. But I think that was important. It was interesting. It's just another lens. Because, you know, he has his mom's POV. He's got Maya, his girlfriend. He's got Dwight, his friend. And now he has Father Patrick, who is coming from more of a kind of like a religious biblical background, but he was very clever in making his message still applicable to Adam, who, like you said, was not holding back. He was swearing. He was real comfortable.
And one more thing, I know we kind of touched on this earlier and I should have mentioned it then, but it just came to me, was that scene at the end of the movie where Adam, after his mom and Paul pick him up after he was hospitalized, they take him to the school and he goes on stage and tells everyone that he has schizophrenia. And I feel like that was a really important moment when we're talking about him kind of taking ownership of the disorder and, you know, realizing it and accepting that this is a part of him, and not being ashamed of that or feeling like he needs to hide it. That was such a key moment for Adam, and I feel like just the growth it took to get him to that point and the courage it took to even do that, you know, it was just another really touching moment, and I like that was included in the movie because again, Charlie Plummer, you know, it was a very emotional moment. He really acted that scene very well. And so I feel like that was a very, very important moment for Adam.
Yeah, I guess just kind of quickly moving into the film a little bit more. The performances were stellar. The soundtrack was compelling. The CGI was really compelling too, and just really good, because it's one thing to read about Adam's experiences with his hallucinations, but to see that come to life, we really were there with Adam. Like, we felt his fears. It was really interesting to see it come to life, because even though like I had the characters kind of already pictured in my head, I still kind of had a different experience. Like, reading the book, I was creating this world in my head and then seeing another interpretation on film. There were definitely some differences from the film and the book, but I think thematically we still got the message, which is just self-acceptance, having that support team.
Yeah, definitely they did an amazing job of really immersing us in Adam's world and really trying to clearly show the viewer what he was going through. And like you said, the changes that they did make, I think that they worked well in bringing the story to life visually, because I know we talked about this in our interview with Julia, but the entire book is told through his journal entries. And so, you know, how to bring that to film where you still feel like you can relate to Adam, and so instead having it like, you know, just him talking to the camera instead, you know, just little changes like that really can pull us in and tie us to the character and bring us into that world. And so in watching the film and like seeing the little things that they did change, it just really helped the story to come together in a very cohesive fashion visually.
And that's actually an interesting point that you brought up, and I know we did touch on it like you said in the interview, but so right off the jump in the book, the fact that, you know, he's writing in like a journal format to his psychiatrist, but like it's first person. So it's kind of like he's speaking to us, you know, so we kind of get that connection. By having them do that parallel in the film with breaking the fourth wall, him speaking directly to the camera, again, like he's still speaking to us. We feel like we're right there with Adam, you know, like we're one of his friends. Like, we're part of that support team.
Yeah, he's talking to us and giving us the play-by-play.
Right. And so, yeah, that was really a clever decision, a clever change, you know. You guys probably know this from listening from, like, our Little Fires episode and Normal People, but we tend to be really, like, you know, they're books. Books are our babies. We love books. And so when
adaptation must be exactly like the book. Right. Like how we act.
Right. You know, but at the end of the day, it's a different medium. So there's going to be those differences. And definitely, yeah, it's definitely worth watching.
Yeah, if you haven't read or watched, please do yourself the favor. I feel like this is such an important book, such an important story that needs to be told. Clearly, we both feel like that. We both really enjoyed it. So yes, check out the film, check out the movie. Go ahead and listen to our interview with Julia. She gives amazing insight into these characters and where these stories came from. And we had a really great time chatting with her and getting to learn more about her and about both of her books. So be sure to check that out.
Right now, the book is available as an ebook or in person at Barnes & Noble or wherever you get your books. And the film will be available next month. On November 10th, it'll be available digitally, and November 17th, it will be available in DVD. So definitely check it out, guys. And don't be afraid to hit us up. You know, we want to talk to you guys. We want to have that dynamic going. We'll have our socials plugged in our show notes as per usual. And yeah, we really hope you guys enjoy this episode, and we'll see you next week. Please stay tuned after the outro for more information on our donation of the week.
For this week's donation, we have chosen the National Alliance on Mental Illness. NAMI is the nation's largest grassroots mental health organization dedicated to building better lives for those affected by mental illness. Through education, support, and advocacy, they aim to remove the stigma and create a world where all people affected by mental illness live healthy, fulfilling lives, supported by a community that cares. NAMI helps to shape public policy for people with mental illness, offer education programs, organize public events such as Mental Illness Awareness Week and NAMI Walks, and provide a toll-free NAMI helpline that offers free information and support. For more information about NAMI and how to donate, please visit the link in our show notes, and we'll see you next week.